the OOC. We are
Number
back again
11.
in Twitchland. And this time, bonus. We have a guest.
Our first ever guest.
Our ever guest.
Yes.
Hi.
So everybody, I'd like you to meet Joanna Liu, who is from DND Research. And DND Research does something that is like super exciting for us. They basically collect and report demographics about RPGs, D&D, and other RPGs. And it's all super, super, super interesting. And we love anything about demographics, anything about gaming. So this is perfect. So we're going to find out lots of fun facts. And yeah.
Fun facts that aren't told by Tanya.
Yes, fun facts that are not Tanya fun facts. Somebody else will be giving the fun facts. So I want a quick question, and basically, how did you start this project? Like, what made you want to start collecting demographics about role-playing games?
Yeah, so I actually started with my thesis for my master degree. So I was doing a master degree at NYU for games for learning, and then basically deals with educational game design. And then what I kind of like started like in 2019 fall is that I started kind of researching into how D&D players learn and like play the game with each other collaboratively. Especially in like kind of remote situation or in-person situation, what's the difference? So that's kind of like how I started the research, and then pandemic hit. And I was like, okay, now I have to redo my research probably, because a lot of topics is not relevant anymore and data has been changing so drastically that year. So I was like, okay, I need to do more updates and talk to more people every day. So we did a survey, and also then we did 100 D&D interviews with D&D players and DMs. And after the DM interview, we also did 1,000 people survey to compare results. So that's kind of like where we started. It's like one person mission, me doing D&D research for my thesis, and then it kind of like expanded to something more than just a thesis. Then we started a group, and I asked people, hey, is there anyone else interested in this, want to do this with me? So we started collecting students basically at NYU at first. So just like people applying, say, hey, I want to help out. And then they would help out one semester and leave, and then help another person will come in one semester. So that's kind of the system we run.
So, go on.
I was just going to ask, you talked about where have you gotten responses from? Like, is it just both mostly in North America, or have you gotten responses from like Australia, Europe, Asia, East Asia? You know, where have your what is the demographic that we're looking at when people answer your questions?
Yeah, we actually have 47 countries answering questions. So like that's insane. But although majority of it are from North America, I think about 60% or like 55% are from North America, and then the rest from Europe, from like even Asia and different South America, different locations. Mostly Europe and North America, the biggest sectors.
How do you usually send out your surveys?
I
take one. Oh.
I know the first round I just went on Instagram and asked people, hey, I have a survey, and then people shared for me. And then second round we did on Reddit, on Facebook, any social media platform out there. We're just like, hey, we have this survey, we're doing this research. We try to get the most reach as possible.
I do want to say for people watching, if you want to go see a bunch of really fun graphs, who doesn't love a really fun graph? I know I do. And you're on Instagram, look for DND.research, and you can see all the goodies there. So you brought us some of these beautiful graphs. Do you want to chat about some of them?
Totally. Which one do you want to start with?
What are our options?
What are our options? I was like, I am always going to go to gender first. That's always like with this crew. I'm generally like, show us your gender breakdowns.
Yeah,
let's do that. So we're going old school. So just showing this. I don't know if you guys see it. Yeah. Basically, this is kind of the one of the graph we compared from 2019 to 2020 results, with the gender breakdown. So we can see that there's definitely increase of non-binary and also female players in 2020. So this is kind of one of the key finding we found in terms of gender breakdown. It's more people, more diverse people are playing D&D. Yeah.
I remember when you posted that graph, everybody got super excited. We talked a lot about it. And one of the things that was kind of being brought up were more women and non-binary people coming to was it showing that more were coming to the game virtually, because virtually seemed a safer way to enter the game, and that they could more easily create virtual gaming tables with their friends. Yeah,
exactly. The online environment definitely encouraged that a lot. And another thing we do see that, like, I wanted to see if there's any difference in terms of basically average experience at TTRPG. So there is a difference, especially you can see that men are still kind of like the people who has played longest, because that's how they get started, and then slowly women and non-binary people join in the game. But then when you compare to people the data which is not on this chart is that when you compare to the longest players divided by genders, they are the same. So there have been women players who have played 20, 40 years. There are men who played, there are non-binary people who have played. It's not like as you think women did not play at all back then, because we have lots of old time gamers like you guys here, have been playing for such a long time.
And like Tanya and I've only been playing from 20 years into D&D. There was a previous 20 years of D&D before Tanya and I, well, neither one of us were born when it started. But yeah.
And but it's a thing that Sarah and I have brought up before on panels and in the OOC before, is that it's a misconception that sort of before 2000 or whatever, that it was only dudes that played this game. It was like, now I was there and there were other women. There just weren't as many. They might not have stuck around as long or whatever, but they were there. And Sarah and I have even mentioned that in the marketing for D&D,
back in
in the 70s and 80s, yeah, women appear in their marketing. So I like that the data, backs that up.
yeah, exactly. So when you look at the average, there is a difference in average because more new players are joining in, more new female players join in. But if you look at exactly maximum gameplay of D&D is 45 years. Basically, one of the person told me that he literally walked into the store and then the shop owner, hey, there's a new game that's called Dungeons and Dragons. Do you want to try it? And that's how he gets started. But it's kind of that kind of environment is we see that there's no, with gender breakdown, there's really no special cases where one person started the women started later. It's we all started at the same time, it just wasn't as many. Now there's just so much more new female players that encourage more female players to play, which is a good sign in the community.
Right, and that's a thing that we talk about a lot, is that once any demographic has representation at the table, right, you got your foot in the door, and now you get to bring your, they'll bring their friends on board. And so last week on the OOC, we actually were talking about the Matt Mercer effect and Critical Role and the Adventure Zone, Dimension 20, all of these shows. And I was wondering if you have demographics to show basically the number of players over
and had started after streaming happened about 5 years ago.
I don't have that number because I just started research last year, right. But what I can show you is to show the online play difference for the before pandemic and after pandemic. And I can show you 3 pillars of D&D and divided by age. That's what I can show you. I can show you that role play has been much more. Let's start with that. So as you can see, I can compare with some other data has done by Wizards of the Coast and other places, that the role play sector for the past few years have always been 50%. Now this year has been 67% on our data, and I just saw some other big companies did similar study with similar results. So you can see that role play is now seen as more important than ever than ever other sectors. And then this is the chart with role play breakdown by age, not by gender, but by age. So you can see that as you get older, like role play became less important. But for younger people, role play is very, very important. And I was just having this discussion the other day, and then what we were discussing is that for young people, it's essential. It's very important to figure out who they are. And D&D or tabletop RPGs really provided that opportunity for younger generation people to figure out who they are through role playing. And as you get older, you're more certain about who you are, but you kind of want to explore, want that adventure. So that's why adventure and exploration became a larger sector of importance for playing tabletop.
And I think it also may be the people that are older have probably been playing longer, and the landscape of D&D has changed, and the landscape of TTRPGs. Because
we've talked about this before too. Is that
because it started out as a war game?
Yeah, dungeon delving. Yeah, the murder hobos, like that. A lot of us, because historically D&D came from
miniature wargaming,
right? Miniature war games where there's no role playing. It's all very prescriptive movements that have to do with battle, and that there's kind of a role playing shell put on it, but that shell was honestly fairly thin in the beginning. And that it's getting thicker and thicker. And I'm wondering, like, what the correlation or causation would be if you looked at that increase in diversity, that increase in wanting to explore self, increasing over time, and this desire to have more role play also increasing over time. That's how my brain thinks.
Yeah. There's also a lot of people believe that female players like to role play more than male, and then it's kind of slightly true according to data. Female is a little bit higher in terms of like how do they prefer role play more, but not huge significance. So yeah,
that's really interesting to me, and I say that as a person who loves to play a fighter and who is in my heart of hearts kind of a murder hobo. I mean, I've always been like explore, kill, like whatever. But a lot of that is because that's how the game was played. And I'm enjoying having way more role play as part of my experience now than in my past. But it's kind of interesting to know. We have several male identifying friends who play or DM who've been around who are very big on role playing. So it's nice to know that they aren't the anomalies some people might.
It's not like all men likes combat, all female like role play. It's really a blend. Yeah,
right.
And so that's why we found gender was not the case. It was age that separated them. Like if they like no or combat. Yeah. So you another big
we've lost. Hold on, we've lost. Oh no. Sarah is having a lot of technical difficulties today, so please bear with. Yeah, we'll keep going. You can pop in your question later. So have you ever kind of looked at the data that you've had before, kind of made some assumptions, and then you get more of the data and the result is actually pretty surprising to you? Like anything that was like, oh.
Yeah, one thing that we knew that pandemic is going to hugely change how people play, was like in terms of like how many people are playing online now compared to before. We did not expect that much of a change. So I can tell you, before in the 2019 study, about 55% of people said that they have never played online before. It just like no, like they never played online. And then 45% people. So and then suddenly 2020, it's only 8.5% people never played online. Like 91.5% people have.
I mean, in one sense, that's logical, but it does blow my mind. I mean, I didn't play online before the pandemic. Yeah, so I know we can't hear Sarah. So one thing that you should know about your average adventuring show is that everyone here gamed to some degree before the show. But that Sarah really, because of the pandemic, was looking for kind of something new, something different to do RPG wise that used the online platforms. So our show is kind of birthed out of that same.
Are you getting anything?
High church. Yes.
Oh.
Okay. I'm just really frustrated. I like Tanya was among that percentage that did not ever play online because I didn't need to. There was no need for me to play online because I had my local gaming groups. I had I have two groups that I DM for all the time and one that I played with. So we always met at Emerald Tavern or we met at people's houses. So there's no reason for us to go online. But I will say this is an anecdote. I think I've shared it before. During the pandemic, I had friends that knew I played D&D and were friends from college. And I got a message from one of them that was like, hey, Sarah, do you want to play D&D with us? And I was like, okay. And like almost all of them had never played D&D before. And I was like brought in as like a ringer. But they were like, because they were like, it's pandemic. What are we going to do? Well, I guess we'll play D&D. And 3 people are on the East Coast. 3 of us are in Texas and 1's in Seattle. So like D&D during the pandemic, like because we were like, well, we got to be on the video anyway. Might as well play D&D. Like so like I haven't talked to some of these people in over a decade, and all of a sudden we're playing D&D together. So it's like, pandemic, what you gonna do?
Right.
I think
the pandemic has changed the landscape a lot, and it looks like the data says so too.
Yeah. My question was about. Go on.
I was like, I didn't hardcore play D&D till the pandemic. I played Pathfinder a little bit, and then the pandemic hit, and Herman, one of our friends at Sherwood, was like, hey, anybody want to play D&D since we can't do Sherwood? And I was like, yeah. Sure.
And now you do this, and now Annika plays in my game, and a game that my husband DMs. I
also DM my own game now,
too.
I also DM my own game now as well.
And DMs their own game. So
my question that actually, because this is great to be able to dovetail. Annika talked about playing Pathfinder. It says you're called DND Research, but do you get research about like any other RPGs, or is it just almost exclusively D&D?
Yes, we do.
Yay!
Why are you
I
asking?
read this one and I was like, oh well, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Top 10 RPGs. We did do research. Apparently, D&D is definitely the number 1. But number 2 is Pathfinder. Number 3 is Call of Cthulhu, and then so forth. So so there are a lot of.
I love that Honey Heist
is not on there.
I do too. I saw the Honey Heist and I was like,
love that Honey Heist on there. It is a 1-page RPG Grant Howitt wrote in like 2017, mostly as a joke. And then they played it on Critical Role. Everybody's like, this game's amazing. We're gonna play it.
So
like you, like
2.7%. Yeah, 2.7% because of Critical Role. We'll point out we did a one-shot in Honey Heist. It's ridiculous.
Become a patron and you can watch it.
Cyberpunk is not on there. Cyberpunk is not on there. Play some classics.
I mean, this data is collected before the Cyberpunk, the video game 2077 released. Now that's released, everyone's playing Cyberpunk.
Going back and playing
as well, like because they felt like, okay, I now enjoy this Cyberpunk themed kind of environment. I want to bring that into my tabletop gaming. And then so I see a correlation how video games.
I found it interesting that Shadowrun was so high up on the list, and then Cyberpunk didn't even make the list. I'm curious. I want to ask people questions.
Yeah, I also noticed. So we saw the Star Wars RPG on there, and I'm assuming it's the Star Wars Fantasy Flight RPGs. There's 3 of them: Edge of Empire, Age of Rebellion, and Force and Destiny. And I'll say one of the games that is on there is Star Trek Adventures, which Yas's next arc will be a Star Trek Adventures game. So I also wanted, because also like seeing, because you've got Dungeons and Dragons, which is like the grand poobah. Like Dungeons and Dragons is like the grandmama of them all. Like everything kind of came out of that. But also seeing, it also really pleases me, not going to lie, to see Vampire the Masquerade on there. Because that means that people are playing a game that it's a not D20 based system. Because VTM and all of the White Wolf stuff is a D10 based system. Yeah. And it also is like, even when you play in person, you don't really use tactical maps. It's almost exclusively role play focused. It's almost exclusive. Like you'll have combat every once in a while, but it's more about like social dynamics and stuff like that. So seeing
even the way magic works in White Wolf is very, very theater of the mind. It's not. You don't get a paragraph that says this is what your spell looks like and this is what it does.
Yeah.
You get like a vague idea and then
this is what you try to do and we'll see what happens.
So it's nice to see White Wolf still hanging around.
Yeah. It's somebody who's very excited about the re-release of Werewolf when they do that update.
Grr.
I like Werewolf more than I like Vampire, and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
I do too. I'll still murder hobo.
Anya, do you have any questions that you wanted to, as we start talking about like demographics and stuff? Any demographic questions? Because the other thing that I would like to see a breakdown as, if I don't know if you have it or not, but is either like ethnicity, race breakdowns as far as like.
Yeah, I do. I don't have it printed out, but I can definitely talk about it.
Numbers is perfect.
Yeah, I can definitely talk about it. Let me just pull up my slide so I can look at it.
I told to be fair, I told Joanna because it was like I will tell you the things that we were probably going to ask about first, and she nailed it. Like all of them. We just happen to have time to ooch into more things.
No problem. I can pull up numbers. Just give me a second. Let me pull up
Annika. Hey, Annika. How's it going?
I'm just here.
I can hear you. It's weird.
Oh.
You don't have any questions?
No. I'm just here.
Yeah, my slides are just loading because there's so many. There's like 100 pages of slides we have compiled from all the research because it's been like literally a long time since we started.
Y'all get to do some like panels and interviews and other stuff, right? So it's y'all are getting to share all these goodies.
Oh yeah, we really hope to. Like we're just like so tired in playing catch up of like each week, trying to do more research and do more release more data. But we recently really just did a ratio breakdown. Actually, I think it is actually, if I can't find it here, I can probably find it on my phone. So let me do that quickly.
Because that's something we talked about it less OOC with, and we've talked about it several times with the proliferation of streaming, and you get to have streams where people see themselves playing. You get games like Dungeons and Dragons, you get Rivals of Waterdeep, you get native D&D, like you get games where people see themselves. So, because like if you just go to a game store, you're like, look at all of these, and I'm like, I'm one of them. I'm a white person. I'm like, you're like, look at all these white people playing games.
Yeah,
I'm like, I feel comfortable there because I'm white. But like, I can't imagine what that's like for being somebody who's not.
Yeah, I can definitely comment on that.
Yeah,
but like, do you want the global data or do you want the North America? I mean the US
either
data?
Or both, whatever you've got.
Yeah. Let's start with the US data because I feel like our data was geared more towards like North America when we did the ratio section. A lot of Europeans actually told us our data sounds like our question sounds weird about the ratio section because like, because we're following the US Census kind of ratio data kind of structure. So that didn't fit in a lot of other countries how they do like ratio data like gathering. So that's why I don't know how accurate that the result is for our global data. But I can tell you, like in North America, basically white people is about 76% who are playing D&D, and then we have about 5% Asian and 1.6% African American, and we have about 5% Latino and Hispanic, and then we have 1.1% Native Americans. And then we have 0.5% Native Hawaiians and other Pacific. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think any of that shocks me.
Yeah, no, we're just kind of like, yep, that seems.
I would love to.
Globally, the like just white people playing D&D is about 89%. So basically, majority are still.
My son runs a game, and his best friend is Black, and like has zero interest in playing D&D, and even was like kind of making comments like, oh, you know, it's a white people's game, but they'll go play video games like for hours and hours. But like one of the players that's in my son's game is Hispanic. And so I found that really interesting that was and he had never played, knew nobody else who played, but he was just super game to like do something different. Yes.
For me, it's even harder because English is not even my first language, right? So when I play, it's like not even a racial sign, was like, can I even DM in English? Is my English level there to describe the things I want to describe? Like, so that's another concern as well. So it's just kind of, it is sometimes discouraging when you look at a lot of streams and shows, there's not enough representation. Like obviously I'm happy there's a lot of representation of women in D&D now on the shows, but there's not enough still representation of minority groups. So for me, yeah, it can get a little bit like lonely, and it can be every time I talk to people like, you know, from my community, like the Chinese community, people don't know what D&D is at all. They have absolutely no idea. Like
I'm going to lay this out too, and you do not have, now this is live and you don't have to feel like you're even put on the spot, but if you ever want to guest on Yas, you're more than welcome to. If you ever want to come play with us, we will invite you back.
I know like other shows are big on like occasional guest stars, but we're like all the guests all the time because we want to play with everybody.
Yeah, we kind of, because like I was me, because this is like, it turned out to be a web. Like I reached out to people that I knew that played D&D. Like when we started, yes, I'm like, do you want to play D&D on the show? And they're like, yeah. But then these people know these people, and this person knows this person, and this person met this person through this thing. And so we just keep like grabbing people. We're like, do you want to play a RPG with us? And people are like, okay. And we're like, all right. So we just keep like grabbing people in from random things. And you're like, you're now part of the family. So like, that's how we kind of like get our guest stars. We're like, we might either already know them or we just met them and we're like, hey, you're cool. You want to play D&D with us?
And you're definitely, yeah, you're cool. Want to play with us? We are definitely nerds. You're cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I do it too. That's how I do research. Like, oh, do you want to learn more about D&D? And then do you want to do this? Do you want to like? That's how I reach out to people as well. Yeah. So like talking to 100 dungeon masters during my research is probably the most beneficial thing for me because everybody wanted to talk. It was like almost like we booked the research slot for 15 minutes in the beginning. They were like, that's ridiculous. No, 30 minutes. No, that's ridiculous. 45 minutes. And then each talk ended to be 1.5 hour. So people just wanted to talk about Dungeon Master and then talk about how they play D&D, and then it became such an interesting thing. One time we started, the question was like, oh, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your D&D experience? And we realized that was a mistake because that was a 1 hour conversation the person launching. I was born in 1972 and this is how I started. And then it was like 45 minutes in, we're like, this person is still talking. We're still on the first question. We haven't gone to any of the other questions yet. We started panicking a little bit. So that's kind of like how enthusiastic this community is. That's why I love it here, because I just feel like it's so inclusive. So like, you know, so for me, I feel like very, very grateful to be like included in this community. I started playing about 7 years ago when my husband and me were like in a long distance relationship. We were like, we want to try something interesting and cool. And then like, hey, how about try like, we didn't play Dungeons & Dragons, we played another system. I can't even remember which system we started, but it was a totally different system, not a D20 system. And then we played that system for a little while. And then I was like, I'm really interested in this. I want to try to DM my own campaign. And the thing with me is I love storytelling. And that's what drew me in, is because when I was a kid, I was a little bit like also the kind of typical nerd. I was lonely. I was like the only.
And you read a bunch of books? You just sat down and read books?
Yeah, and I had no friends. I just read book, wrote stories, and then silly in my own, just like I was just like putting on my dad's coats and then like putting on caps and then trying to play different roles and then make funny voices and in my head. And that's kind of like how I started. I was like, oh, I already practiced this like for 15 years. So when I jumped into DMing, that was like a natural transition from like just playing things in your head to actually playing to people with real people. So that's kind of how I started D&D, and I really think that that was like huge like creative outlet for me that I didn't know like I wanted to. So that's why D&D is so close to my heart now. Like the whole TTRPG is just like so amazing. Yeah.
I think it would be interesting to find out, because we did talk about like the global like demographic of people playing D&D, but Segment, sorry, my cat. She's just like walking in front of my mic. I'm like, Segment. Is if there are like country specific, because I know from what I've heard, like people in like Eastern Europe or like Germany don't play, they play a different game. They play like Zweihander or something like that. Like they, as opposed to playing, like there are different, like in Italy, is Dungeons and Dragons more popular than, you know, White Wolf games? Or are there games that we don't even know about in the United States that are like almost like regional RPGs that we in the States don't know about because we're like, I don't know, they made in Italy and it hasn't gotten this far yet or whatever it is. I think that would be really interesting, like breakdown.
That's a very interesting question. I will do that research next week because I have the data. I just need to cross-reference them, right? I need to see what RPG they play and then their nationality. So I haven't even thought about that. Yes.
Yeah. So somebody actually asked in the chat, they said, interesting point on language. Do you think there are other language ecosystems for TTRPGs / D&D out there? Say in Russian or French or Chinese or Spanish? That's what they had asked.
I actually know a couple like Spanish dungeon masters in Spanish. So I definitely know there are system and translated system in Spanish out there, but then they still needed translation. So I think a lot of people are still reading the English and translating in their own, the rules in English and then DMing in their own language. So I think that that's definitely one of the barriers. And I know like in terms of Russian, there's actually, I did interview a Russian dungeon master as well. And then she was saying that like it's a lot of story and culture doesn't match. Like some of the stuff that they mention is really Western, like even they are also kind of part of Europe, but it's like a very different culture. So when you listen to those fantasy stuff, like the culture didn't really match with what she grew up with, the fairy tales. So that's why she wanted to create a system that's more fitted for her kind of SNSD. So that's kind of that's where it comes from. Same as Asian, as like I see a lot of like Japanese like samurai kind of scene, because that's kind of Western Spanish too, like samurai. But not definitely not anything set in the Asian China in the wuxia kind of like you know.
There was the supplement Unbreakable that was written by Asian Korea. It was Dungeons and Dragons 5e supplement. And I'm gonna, Abby's not here on the channel obviously, but Abby is a friend of mine, and we're talking about both language and culture. Abby is from South Asia. She's from the southern part of India. And I'm telling his story. Thank you for it's one of my favorite stories.
One of my favorite stories, though. So
it's so good. He played in a game. This is before the pandemic, and he was DMing, and he speaks a very specific language that's from South India. And one of the people playing in his game was his sister. So they both speak this one language that nobody else at the table speaks, and nobody else at the table spoke Gnomish, just her character. So anytime anybody was speaking Gnomish, they used the language that only the two of them could speak, because that was Gnomish to them, because everybody else at the table was like, we have no idea what you're saying, because nobody else spoke Gnomish. But they used their native language as a D&D, as a TTRPG tool to kind of like, and I have a friend that was kind of the same way. A friend of mine, Hector, and my friends Hector and Sarah, they were like, that playing another game of ours, and they're both Latine. And so they were like, they have kind of like their own little like special thing, because like they know more Spanish than the rest of us. So like if they want to, you know, I'm like, you have to clue me in on the DM. I need to know kind of what you're talking about. So they'll like text me. But it also, Abby would also talk about, one of the first things Abby and I talked about D&D was he talked about the like appropriation of myth in D&D, like the monster manual and stuff like that, with like the Oni and the Rakshasa and all that stuff. And he's like, that's not what the Rakshasa is. He's like, I'm from India. That's not what it is. And then, but he talked about buying Unbreakable and liking it a lot because it was sharing Asian folktale and Asian stories from an Asian perspective. And then there's another game called RPGs coming out called RPGC or Southeast Asia. So it's RPGs written by creators from Southeast Asia that have like kind of a Southeast Asian bent. So it's something Tanya and I've said, the more people that you have in this community, the more interesting and fun things that are coming out. But yeah, I always love, it's like we talk about language as, common and Elvish and stuff like that. I constantly in my games will use Welsh as Elvish because of course I do, because I know Welsh. So it's like everybody else is like,
it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Speaking Welsh and riding corgis.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that we talk about for sure. But I'm actually like, I just had an assumption, I guess, that these books had been translated.
I think
never
there's a
thought
Japanese
to think that
version.
they're not.
Yeah, but I don't think so. There's also like signs of like how many people are like really playing the game. My survey definitely doesn't have that rich, right? Because all the other big companies, Wizards of Coast and also D&D Beyond, what they do is they only have their user base as kind of basically their survey people, so that they really are not reaching the people who are actually playing like RPGs in Singapore, in China, in Japan, like because in Hong Kong, because they don't have that data. Those are not their user base. So that's kind of also an issue. Is like we can't really definitely say how many people, for example, like in Taipei, in Hong Kong, are playing RPG right now because we don't have that data. Yeah.
Right. Oh man. Okay. Well, I am super excited to see that data come in.
Discord said go away, and now I'm back.
Oh, we just
I'm reading. I'm looking at the Dungeons and Dragons website. It says and this is from 2017. It's talking about localizing the game, and it says that this was again 2017. The first translations will be French, German, Italian, Japanese, Spanish, Polish, and Portuguese, with more to follow. So that from 4 years ago, March 21st, 2017, those were the first ones that the core books were being languages that the core books were being translated to. And you can tell it's got a very heavy European bent to.
Yeah, even in Japan, the people in Japan who play Dungeons and Dragons are white people stationed there, just to let you know. So that the people, we had a Japan people who answered the survey, but they're also not actually native Japanese people. So there are a lot of that. Like, how do we reach those people who are actually playing RPG when they're not a user base of any of the the big companies or
the big companies, yeah,
or the social media platforms, because like there are different. So like India has its own like version of Twitter, and so does China, and everybody has like their own social media platform that you're reaching you're reaching for your research on these social media platforms. That if the social media platform isn't being used in that country, then you're not getting a response from those people.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's definitely some kind of like firewall restrictions for a lot of people, so that it's just that information is just not available to us. So like that's why I'm saying like maybe there is a huge community, we just don't know. So like we never know what the real case is in this scenario. But yeah, so like I was saying, sorry.
I was gonna say, if anybody's watching in like China or Japan or somewhere in South Asia or Africa, and you know of some people that are playing D&D and other RPGs, go to D&D Research and contact Joanna and tell her all of the stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
We're over our time, but I wanted to give you an opportunity.
We have 30 minutes.
12:30.
We end at 1:30.
Time. Never mind. Continue.
We're still going.
We used to start at noon. The whole noon 30 thing throws me. So.
Oh yeah. No, I was just talking about like back to earlier conversation before we went live about supportive parents. Like my parents still don't understand what I do because I do pretty much D&D for my study, and I do D&D for I do D&D related jewelry, and then also made an app about like making dungeons and modular terrain in digital environment. So I do everything in my life related to D&D, and then my parents still don't know what I do. So it's like no matter how many times I explain to them, I even did a mini one shot with them, they still don't have no idea. Like even after
my mom joined us for the Honey Heist. So
Yeah.
my mom was on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if they're like, I just don't understand, and I don't understand how to explain it to other people. So it's that's kind of the gap. I think like a lot of the culture gaps there as well. It's like I don't know when finally my parents understand what I do for a living, but that's
Right.
kind of the song. Like I keep trying to like make people understand, people in my community to understand, but it is very difficult. Yeah.
I think it would be interesting, to have interviews with people who are outside the bulk demographic, for role playing, but who are role players, and talk to them about what it was that got them interested. Because I think if you kind of collect enough of those stories, you get that qualitative data of knowing what's working.
So we have asked that question just to give you what's the most common way people started playing D&D? Dad, actually, like a father or an uncle who introduced them to D&D. That's actually the number one reason. So that's funny. And then
I'll add to that number one reason. My dad played Dungeons and Dragons before I did.
I was going to say that works with you, not for me, not for Sarah. Although Sarah's close because it's brother.
Mine was close. It was not my dad or an uncle, but it was my older brothers.
Yeah.
But like, so it wasn't my dad. It was actually technically a coworker who got me to start playing. I've known about Dungeons and Dragons since forever because my dad played it, but I didn't get into it until a coworker of mine was like, "Hey, you'd like this." So
yeah, so yeah, that was the funniest line. Is like before like friends and everything else, it's always my dad taught me, or my uncle taught me, or my friend's dad taught me. So the word dad is always in the top one reason. So I thought that was funny.
My kid plays because we played. Like, it wasn't like we play and then he came, he learned about it through friends. So I guess that it says, my brain is already trying to like pick apart that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, that's one of the data I found like most interesting, is that it's kind of like a sports, almost like generational, like passed down, right? Kind of like you teach your kid basketball or football, like that kind of thing. I teach my kids my hobby, which is Dungeons and Dragons. So yeah, so that's also yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's one of those things again where I guess if I stopped and thought about it, it seems logical, but it's just shocked me. You said you're making terrain now, so you've been playing for 7 years, and this is me going off topic because I'm just curious. You've been playing for 7 years, but you started making jewelry and now terrain. And as a person who also makes stuff inspired by my hobby, I just want to talk to you about how playing D&D. I mean, Annika does too. Like, inspires you to make things. It's so exciting.
I make dice bags,
and Sarah makes dice bags.
I think it's a most creative outlet, right? So people want to be more creative, and the people who play D&D are very creative. So like I think it all connects together, like where our creativity just expands a little bit further, and then that's why like there's so many good stuff. There's people making dice trays, there are people making like all sorts of different signs, right? So it just the community, just from in the very beginning, where people are like, okay, because it's based on imagination, I still need some kind of visualization to bring that imagination to life, to increase that game immersion. So that's why people are printing out maps and laminating them and then drawing on them like in the beginning, and then printing out minis, like it just expanded, right? So I definitely think that war game kind of like beginning is already like very crafty hobby, make this a very crafty hobby, and then it goes from there where people are like, okay, I can make more, I can be more creative about this industry. So I think that's really why we have so many cool creators and makers in the Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop RPG community.
It is. We are very saturated, and I love it. Okay, I have a more serious question. Have you done any research or any questions regarding the gatekeeping phenomenon that is a lot of, especially like women, non-binary, non-white, have experienced in gaming? Have you touched on that at all in your?
Not really, as I said, like we don't have enough even people to talk to be honest. But it's just really, I think, personal perspective for me, like beyond, I said, like language and not seeing enough role models on the TV. It's kind of same as like Asian actors being presented on TV or things like that. It's or like it's the same kind of idea. I think as more of us are represented like on the media, it's going to definitely help the gatekeeping experience to go away, because then so my research partner Rival, who did study in Magic the Gathering before we started this research, she wrote her like previous thesis on that. And then so she was going to a event that's like I don't know how many years ago, but when she went there, she was like very shocked that it was all male. And then everyone had been playing it for a very, very long time. And then they were not very nice to new players, even though she was like, I'm here to learn. I want to research. I also want to learn the game. So that's kind of like, I think that environment definitely have changed a little bit. And especially now we have so many groups that for women, and then women become better players, even better than men. And then they go out and say, hey, I'm awesome. I'm great.
And I want to just do that because I started playing Magic the Gathering when I was like 9 years old. 9. And this was in like 1993. Well, I'm 10 years old. This was like a year after the game started. So they can't talk about women not playing I was a child. I was an actual human female child playing Magic the Gathering. Granted, I haven't played since I was about 12, but still, I was there in the early days. Do not say the old Magic to me, children. I was there when it was created.
It is true though. Like when I only play with my friends, my husband, my son. I've gone with them to tournaments and I've gone with them to play days, and it is literally all dudes. And usually all white dudes. It is like way more homogenous than just about any other geek-based gaming that I've ever been associated with. It terrified. They were always like, "You're good. Like you're good. You should come do tournament days." And I'm like, "No."
Yeah, I mean that's why like I think it helps when they see good female players and they go like, oh okay, you actually can play, and then like that changes the perspective a little bit, at least little by little. That's the same. I also play a game called Go, which is like a Japanese Asian chess game.
Oh my god, I was gonna grab my Go board, but it weighs like 50 pounds. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. So my dad is actually a Go teacher in Canada. He teaches kids Go. So that's how good he is. And then I've been trained by him. I'm not as good at all, but then I also grew up in that tournament kind of environment. So it's also a area where women are usually not being promoted as strong players. So that's kind of the same idea. So I've been in that situation my whole life. It's kind of, you go to a tournament and they're all guys and they're like, oh, you're a female player, you will never get as good as men. So
you're like, it's a cycle. You don't let me participate, and if I can't participate, then I can't practice, and if I can't practice, I'm never going to get any better. If I never get any better, you don't want to play with me. And it's like it's this huge cycle, and you're just like. And that's what we were talking about, like D&D being very inclusive, is we've talked about this before, is like sometimes people have definitely come up against roadblocks. They come up against the gatekeeping of people like, we don't want you to play with this because of blah, 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 blah. But for the most part, like Tony and I can tell you, like we're just kind of like, we want to play an RPG, and people are like, okay. And like, that's what we try to do when people are like new to the game. They're like, we want to play D&D, or we want to play Changeling, or we want to play, Star Trek Adventures. I'm like, okay, I got a book. I'll send you the PDF. Let's do this. Like, I just want more people. I want more.
Make a character. I'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah. All the more.
Yeah, here's the thing. If you have a friend who you realize is gatekeeping any kind of game or fandom, I need you to turn to them now, grab them by the shoulders, get in their face, and tell them loudly and firmly, there is no gate. Just, there isn't. You invented it.
But remember to keep your mask on and do it from 6 feet apart.
Yes. So actually grab their shoulders and yell at them from 6 feet away from behind a mask.
Or virtually. Grab their shoulders and be like, and screaming at you in the face.
But yeah, I mean, I know that the gate is imaginary, but the gate is very real for those people who like come up against it.
Yeah.
And I think, like we've kind of talked about here, is being able to do things virtually, being able to do things with chosen groups, being able to do things in groups where the members reflect you in some way, gives you that feeling of safety and like you're going to be able to to learn this and have fun. And Sarah will go off on that gaming should be fun. That it's like if it's
It's a game. That's a whole song. It's fun.
it's a game. And then it should be fun. And if
I was saying, if you watch, yes, there was an episode a few episodes ago where it was very harrowing and people were like upset and crying. But I was like, this might not have been fun for people. I was like, but it was worthwhile. And they were like, no, but it was fun. And I was crying and it was great. And I'm like, okay,
let's do it again. I just need some tissues. We did. We all cried. It was.
I couldn't cry or else my eyes would be burning for the whole time. I tried real hard.
Annika kept telling the rest of us not
I was like,
to cry.
stop making me cry. Dude,
but it was
speaking about
worthwhile.
people going like, hey, you want to play the game? I recently found out that David, the guy who plays Zareth and Yas, knows my first DM because I saw on Facebook that they were friends. And I was like, the guy who was my first ever DM. What the heck? It was so funny.
Because there really aren't that many of us, and we all know each other.
Well, like, especially during friendly local game stores, like before the pandemic.
Yeah,
like
that too.
If you're in Sugarland, there's only one game store to go to. I don't know what the game store.
There's one. There's
Gollum.
one in Katy, and it's near where I live.
Like if you go, if that's the one place for you to go, then you're all gonna go there.
Yeah, but it was just really funny. I was like, Pony, and he was like, yeah, and I was like, this makes sense. Huh.
It all makes sense.
Yeah.
So because we are actually getting on towards.
Yeah, we are close to time.
Is there anything that you want to talk about that's got you jazzed? Any new things that you're looking into, or just fun? We love fun facts. Share them.
Sure. Okay. Share with one fun facts first, and then I can go into something else. I have one more chart that I'm really kind of interested about. Is this kind of chart? How do you role play? So what you can see that most people, it's a little bit hard to see.
Yeah.
I do not role play. I narrate what my character does in third person. Oh, that's my sister. I narrate what my character does in first person. I do different voices and accents for. Okay, we're getting I do live action. Okay, I'm definitely in the. I do different voices and accents.
Yeah. So we found that people.
Tanya, you kill me.
Yeah, we found people who basically just narrate what they do in third person are the people not satisfied with the game. So if you do first person voices, you're going to be more satisfied about your game. So just that's a fun fact. So
as we talked about in the OOC, while you should not be trying to recreate Critical Role or the Adventure Zone or any other show at your table, please try out new things. If you see a player on one of these shows doing something in a way you don't, and it kind of interests you, give it a try. Maybe it'll make it more enjoyable.
Exactly.
Wow, I'm really glad how this is dovetailing together with last week.
Yeah, and also I think one thing is when I present this data to a lot of people, sometimes but I already know that. That's just common sense. I was like, yeah, but it's now backed by data.
It's like, but we have the proof now.
It's like your sources. Oh wait, we've cited sources. Now we have to use the term. What did we promise we were going to say?
I don't know what you're talking about.
My mom came to our panel and then didn't. She thought so. We were like, we're having a panel at a basically like a little Comic-Con, right? Like a mini Comic-Con. And my mom, who was a PhD, came and she was like, oh, hegemony. She was like, she was like, I came to the panel and it was like really casual. Y'all didn't cite any sources. You didn't talk about like the hegemony of like this gaming. And I wanted to maybe give y'all some pointers. I'm like, Mom, we're not giving an academic panel. Like, it's not that kind of convention.
Well, I did write a paper on this, so I do have all the citations. So that will satisfy your mom.
I will do a panel. We're gonna bring Joanna just for your mom. Like, not only because she's really cool, but also like, look, Mom, we found someone who has the sources.
Data.
I'm dead. Tanya's family, it kills me sometimes when Tanya talks about some stuff. I'm just like, oh my god.
I'm sorry, I broke you mentioning my sister.
It's so funny because I play with you. I play with your sister in that game, and it's so funny. I had to tell her just like stuff, and I was like in character telling her stuff, and she's just like, yes, I am the cleric. And I was like, yes, you are.
You said there was something else. There was something that you were excited about. Is there besides fun facts? There's something.
Sure. I definitely want to share about my terrain builder. That's something like I'm super excited about. I've been working a year on that project. Basically, it's also part of my thesis. Part of my thesis is to find the problem in the D&D community and provide a solution as well. So my solution is what I found is a lot of people, when you talk about what's your ideal tool and where do you want to improve, and it's like, I want a holographic table that, like in Star Wars and Star Trek, you can just drag and drop whatever you want on there. That's it. And I don't have to need to know any tech to do that. So I was like, yes, let's see, maybe I can create that. And then that's what I did. So basically it's powered by augmented reality. So you can just drag and drop anything onto your living room table, dining room table, or living room floor. And so it's a phone app. And then, so if I want a castle, I can just search for castle. I can drag and drop in there, and then there you go. I can see it in full size. I can see top down view.
So it's kind of like I was gonna say it's kind of like Minecraft Earth then, in that
Minecraft Earth, but without the little pixels, more like realistic, like Doran Forge like pieces, if you think of that, or full pre-built assets. So you don't have to build every single piece yourself. You can just, there you go.
Awesome.
I wants it.
Whenever people can play in person again.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that works well in remote as well, because if I have the app, you have the app, you can also have the same on your living room loaded. So you can see what I see through your phone. So that's the design. And I'm running a Kickstarter right now, actually, on that. We just reached our goal. We had a really small goal just for me to buy some assets. but yeah, so if you want to buy it and then help support, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, if you want to shoot Annika the link, we can put it in the chat.
Yeah, I will.
Just put the links in Discord, and I'll get them in the description of the YouTube video.
Which one do we want? Which channel are we? Should I?
Live chat?
Yeah, just put it in the live chat one. That'll be good.
Yeah,
and then we'll put it in the description when it goes up on YouTube.
Yes.
All right.
We do love a good Kickstarter.
Yes.
Thank you.
You. I just kickstarted both dice and a system called Coyote and Crow.
All right. Let me put this in.
We are.
Speaking of Roku, Coyote and Crow, the role-playing game. Yeah, it's a role-playing game by native people.
So yeah, that's a. I don't know if that's Sarah. I don't know. Breaking up
I don't think it's Sarah. Oh no.
Okay.
Oh, was it? Okay.
So one of the things I sent Sarah a link to this cool RPG Kickstarter, and it's called Coyote and Crow, and it is basically a future, a non-colonized future, and yeah, so we're super excited about that. And yeah, it's got a lot of involvement from Native peoples.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's right up our to support.
So like I said, being a woman in tech is also hard. I especially dealing with like high tech, like AR and like VR technologies. when I go to conference, it's also like very interesting. One time there's one guy, like I was just talking about some new cool technology that came out, and then he's like, oh, that's really cool. How did you know about that? I was like, seriously, are you asking me how did I know about a technology that in the industry? Like that, like how do you know that technology? It's the same way you do it. Like, so yeah.
Being women, we only learn things when we drink smoothies. I don't know what to tell you, bro. That's yeah, Canary. But we're at time now, so we want to thank you, Joanna, for joining us. And so exciting and so interesting, and we will probably have you back because I know that you recollect data on the same questions, and we love to see how things change. And maybe we can talk you into coming and playing with us. Because
totally.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Either on, because again, I don't know what's going on with my microphone. So either on the main Yas when we play D&D, or a one shot, one of our one shots that we play different systems. So yeah, we will get you on the show. We will get you.
So to all of our Twitch viewers and whoever will watch this on YouTube, thank you guys for watching. We hope you all enjoyed, and we will see you all in our next video, which technically our newest video is our newest Yas episode, which went up 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, went up 30 minutes ago.
Because I forgot to upload it yesterday.
Well, not 30 minutes if you're watching this on YouTube.
But, it went up on Thursday. So the next time you'll see us is our arc finale for Yas,
which has already been filmed. So, and then you guys can stick around, and Annika and I will be gone. And there will be a new arc for Star Trek Adventures.
Yes.
And then we'll come back.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Joanna.
Yes, thank you, Joanna.
That says queer in Vulcan.